After Avraham Avinu finishes eulogizing Sarah, crying for her, he rises from the presence of his deceased. He speaks out to the Bnei Cheis Lemor. So here the Balaturim points out the Cheis are mentioned 10 times in this parsha. Bnei Cheis. Why? So he explains, one who goes and determines the transaction on behalf of the Talmud Chacham, that means the Talmud Chacham is a beneficiary of that transaction, that acquisition, Kilukim Aser Sadibros, as if he fulfilled the Aser Sadibros. Sheishbem Yud Pom Ches, and the Aser Sadibros, the letter Ches is mentioned 10 times. So Bnei Cheis means Hittites. It's not referring to the letter of Ches, but that's mentioned 10 times is alluding to the Aser Sadibros, that Ches is mentioned 10 times in the Aser Sadibros. It's Kilukim Aser Sadibros. What is it all about? We find that there's a mitzvah of Bo Tidbok, that a person should cleave to Hashem. How does one cleave to Hashem? So the Gemara asks, could you cleave to fire? Hashem is fire. Gemara says, Hamesi Bito Talmud Chacham. Person who marries his daughter to Talmud Chacham, since the Talmud Chacham represents the Torah, is Hashem's representation in this world. As a result of that, that's Bo Tidbok. So when you allow your daughter to marry the Talmud Chacham, that's how you connect to Hashem. Or that a person who goes and he allows the Talmud Chacham to benefit from his material possessions, also, that's Bo Tidbok. And if you give the Talmud Chacham prak macho, you give him goods on assignment, that he should be able to earn a living, that's also Bo Tidbok. Because the Talmud Chacham is a representation of Hashem. The famous Gemara, Rabbi Kiva says, Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro, you should revere Hashem. Es, the word es is superfluous. Es l'Rabbis Talmid Chachamim. That not only does Hashem want you to revere Him, He wants you to revere the Talmud Chacham, no less. So we ask the question, the Maral discusses this. We understand you should revere Hashem, there's a mitzvah. But why? And originally Shimon Amsuni was a Kal Reb Kiva, originally wanted to retract his whole treatise on Es, that Es is an adjunct, includes other things. When he came to Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro, he realized, he believed he made a mistake. Is it possible anything's the equivalent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, that Hashem wants you to revere someone else as you revere him? Rabbi Kiva says yes. Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro, l'Rabbis Talmid Chachamim. Hashem wants you to revere the Talmud Chacham no less than you revere him. So Maral explains, how do we understand, how do we have any relevance to really have an inkling of an understanding and internalize the reality of who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is? It's only through Torah. And since the Me'aras HaTorah, the transmission of Torah, is only through the Rebbe, so to the degree that you revere the Rebbe, that's the degree that you value the words that come out of his mouth that he teaches you. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to revere the Rebbe. As a result of that, the Torah will be received and valued differently. And as a result of that, you will revere Hashem, because only through the Torah could you really understand, within any degree of capacity, who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. That's why that's Bo Tidbok. Therefore, that's Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro. So when you go and the Gemara tells us in kindness that a Talmud Chacham who gets angry, you should give him the benefit of the doubt. Why? Because there's a pasuk, Kol Dvari Keish Num Hashem, my words are like fire. And since the Talmud Chacham has Torah within himself, it's Rista Doraisa Rosa Bay. It's the fire of Torah that's burning within him. So the reason what sets him off, why he has certain levels of sensitivity, which upsets him when he sees certain things are not correct, it's because the fire of Torah is within him. Kol dvarei k'eishnu Hashem, the words of Hashem are within that person. So we see the Talmud Chacham is an embodiment of the Torah itself. And as a result of that, that's the reason why he has certain intolerance for certain things, because he's able to grasp and understand things differently than the average person. So if you go and you facilitate the acquisition of a Talmid Chacham and you assist him in this area, it's kilukim aseres hadibros. What's that aseres hadibros? That's the totality of Torah. That's the objective of creation. The world was created for the sake of Torah. So if you go and you assist the Talmid Chacham regarding his acquisition, that's exactly what the value of the world is all about. The world in Kemech Torah, if there's no material, there's no Torah. We live with physical beings. So therefore, whatever the Talmid Chacham needs, if you participate in that process for his acquisition, the Torah over here is alluding by mentioning Cheis 10 times in this parsha. It's the equivalent of kilukim aseres hadibros. That's the way I understand why that's the equivalent of one over the other. In Olam Haba, you have people who are roshim, they're like considered valued like leadership, and others are not. Like you have the tree and you have branches. The trunk of the tree is the essence of the tree. The branches, they grow off the trunk. He says people, in terms of their accomplishments in this world, really, based on that, they should be roshim in the world to come. They should be recognize that in a leadership position, but they're not. Why? Because since they live the lives of this world, and Hashem makes part of the payoff for the mitzvah of this world, that minimizes their spiritual status in Olam Haba. We speak every morning. We say the Mishnah. We have the Yusuf Rucht in this world, but the Keren, the principle, is intact for the world to come. But you never know, chas v'sholom, that a person can actually draw on his Keren, on your principle. You don't want to join the principle. So if the principle is intact for the world to come, then you retain your leadership position. But if you go and you withdraw and you minimize the Keren, then you take on a secondary position. So he writes over there, if you have a person who is a great Talmid Chacham, and you assist him in his objective to be able to succeed as a gadol, as a Torah sage, although you on the personal level are not deserving to be acknowledged as a lead in a leadership position, but because you're essential for that Talmid Chacham, you ascend to his level. That's what happens. Because without your assistance, he would not be able to achieve the degree he's able to achieve. So therefore, you have this upgrade. That's the Ramchal. Similar idea. We live in a world, a physical world, material world. It's not a spiritual world. So therefore, if you the equivalent of the Mansuk Torah, you support the Torah, you assist the Torah, you facilitate many things that the Talmid Chacham should be able to succeed in his capacity, it's as if you're there. So that's the reason why it's kilukim aseres hadibros. So I was thinking, there's an interesting measure over here, that the Yalkut says that when Avraham Avinu purchased the Me'aras HaMachpelah, this was the ultimate chesed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now that you purchased the Me'aras HaMachpelah for your wife Sarah, Ato lovish levushi. Finally, you're wearing my cloak of chesed. Now you're finally doing chesed. I mean, Avraham Avinu, we speak about the Malachim, whatever he did, every detail. Klal Yisrael were beneficiaries for 40 years. Dan Yaakov, the Be'er Shel Miriam, the Mon, that was only due to the Achnos Orchim. Avraham Avinu's whole life was Achnos Orchim. We explain why did he assume the characteristic of chesed, that attribute? Because Olam Chesed Yiboneh. because that the world came into existence only because the Chesed of Hashem, he wanted to emulate Hashem. And now when it comes to Me'aras HaMachpelah, Hashem says, the purchase, he says, now finally, you're doing my Chesed. You're finally wearing my cloak. And until now, it's not. Why isn't it? And then Avraham, everything he did was L'Shem Shamayim, only to bring humanity to monotheism. So we explained in the past, Avram's Chesed, what was Avram's Chesed? It was to the ultimate level. It was L'Shem Shamayim. But the Chesed was only a vehicle to bring people to believe in Hashem. As we explained, people would come into his home, he'd host them in this very elaborate way, and afterwards they would say, thank you, Master Avraham. And he says, no, you shouldn't thank me, you should thank your benefactor. They said, who's the benefactor? Well, there's the creator, and you get involved in this conversation. By the end of the night, the person was a committed monotheist. So the chesed, whatever he did, even though it was l'shem shamayim, it was at this most exceptional level, purely at the most purest level, but it was only a vehicle for what? For emunah b'Hashem. But it wasn't chesed for chesed. When Hashem does chesed, to emulate him in the perfect way, it's chesed for chesed. When he purchased the Morah, cave of Machpelah for Sorah, it wasn't a vehicle. It was chesed for Sorah. Sorah Imenu needed that location for a burial location. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. Finally, now, now you're finally wearing my cloak of chesed. So as a result of that, the Bnei Cheis, that they're facilitating and assisting Avraham Avinu to be able to achieve this, that means now they are crucial and essential for Avraham to be able to fulfill his capacity and spirituality of what true chesed is. Therefore, Tzkilu Kim Aser Sadibros. Therefore, Bnei Cheis are mentioned 10 times, as the letter Ches and Aser Sadibros are mentioned 10 times, to indicate, it's alluding that their participation is Kilu Kiyim Aser Sadibros for that reason.
Okay.
Let's just say it over again. Say what you wanted to say. Go ahead.
I was just highlighting that one of the distinctions between the Chasadim in the context of the Chesed that Abraham did for Lot, there was an aspect that he was had some connection still to Haran, and because he had that
Haran, not Haran, with a head.
Yeah, Haran. And because he had that connection, it wasn't as pure as what he did for Sarah.
Haran, Lot was son Haran, therefore he had a debt to pay. He was paying the personal debt. Over here, there was no debt. Here, she needed a burial location, therefore he buried her.
Yes, it's Meis Mitzvah. I mean, there's no thank you.
I understand that. Over there was no thank you either, right?
But Lot, well, how do you know? Lot,
no, but one thing, the hospitality of Malachim, he never saw these people ever again. Right? He did it purely the Shem Shamayim. It was so pure, we see that we were beneficiaries for 40 years in the desert. The Amei HaKavod, the Mon, the air, it was all because of that hospitality. So we see the purity of that chesed. Right? So I was thinking either way, Jay, because there he had it was paying a debt. Here there's no debt to pay. Here it's purely like, almost like it's chesed shalemus, purely for the sake of the person. It's not paying a debt. Or I was thinking, by Lot, it's who you do chesed for. Lot created his own problem. Why was he taken captive? Because he went to Sodom. So Lot really created the problem. Sorry, man, it was just a fact of life. A person dies, like the Chofetz Chaim writes in the Avos Chesed, as wealthy as you are, as capable you are, there's a time in life where you need other people. Because without other people, you can't be accommodated. A person becomes ill, incapacitated. And he has nobody to help him, somebody helps him. That's so we see that everybody needs chesed at a certain level, regardless of your own capacity, because there are times that you can't help yourself. And the ultimate person who cannot help himself is the person who dies. He has to be buried. So who's gonna bury him? So whoever buries him is doing the ultimate chesed, because that's an area under no circumstances could he help himself. Therefore, that's Chesed Shel Emes. That's the Chav Chaim. So I'm saying over here, Lot created this problem. Dying is a fact of life. Everybody dies. So you need a third party to what? To be involved in that process, in the burial process. Lot, he chose to go to Sodom. He created a problem for himself. Avraham pulled him out of the brink over there. So who did he help? He helped the bad guy. That's who he helped. So it's Chesed Shel Emes. You know, whatever it was over there. It's not quite the same.
It's even more of a chesed though, Rabbi, when you explain it like that. He created himself. It's too bad, and now Avram's going to save him. I mean, that's really chesed.
No, maybe this is the difference. When a person dies, Hashem causes the person to die. The chesed Hashem provides is because He created the scenario that the person needs chesed. Hashem put you on the face of this earth. You has to will that you should have life, because otherwise you don't function. He has to provide air and certain amenities of existence. Otherwise, you can't live. Right? Regardless who the person is, tzaddik, Russia. If you either walk the face of this earth, Hashem provides chesed. That's mechal k'chaim b'chesed. He sustains life with chesed, indiscriminate chesed. No matter who you are, Hashem provides that chesed. So Hashem takes a life. That's just a fact of life. So if Hashem provides life and He takes life, so who's going to provide the burials? He has to be buried. So therefore, as a result of you're in a situation by Lot. Hashem didn't create that fact. He didn't create that fact. That fact was created, that reality, by Lot himself, because he wanted to know. So I'm saying the background on why he needs the chesed is not quite the same as why the deceased needs chesed. The deceased needs chesed, Hashem gives life, takes life. So therefore you join Hashem to finish the process, which is burial. That's ultimately emulating Hashem. That's not only the need, it's the process of where it begins and where it ends. As we say, Hashem nosan, Hashem lokach. Hashem gives, Hashem takes. I'm a stranger. I'm a citizen among you. I mean, the question is he a stranger or is he a citizen? A stranger has no right to a burial plot. A citizen, if you're a citizen, you have a right. So we'll see Rashi, he says, if I'm a ger, I want to purchase it. And if you don't recognize that I have rights, then I'm coming to claim it because I have a right to the land. Tenuli achuzas kevri mochem. Give me a portion for burial among yourselves. Vekra meshi lefonai. What is he saying to Nuli? Give me. He's purchasing. We see that he paid a fortune for this. What's give me? What he's saying is, a person who does hachnosas orchim appropriately, although the guest is a beneficiary of the host, but the ultimate hachnosas orchim is where the host makes the guest feel that he's honoring the host, that he's doing the host a favor, as if the host behaves as if he's the beneficiary, that the guest accepted the hospitality of the host. That's the ultimate level. That the person should feel that he's on the take here, that he's a beggar, because he's in need, I provided. It's very often, when people do somebody a favor, special favor, and then they share with others the favor they did on behalf of that person. But you know something? The moment you share, not only because you want to get mileage on it, but if word gets out that you did that favor for that person, automatically that person becomes minimized because he needed that favor. And he has what he has because the other person provided it. But if the person keeps quiet, doesn't say a word. So what does that mean? It means he did the favor for that person. The person should be the full beneficiary of whatever he received. Nobody has to know about it. So if you don't share it, that's the ultimate level of what? Of doing the favor. if I say to you, I want a bed, I'm willing to pay anything for it. Tenuli. So you'd say the reason why he's giving it to me is because I'm paying for it. Because you're profiting. It's worth a fortune. Avraham said, regardless of what I pay, Tenuli, I consider it like you gave it to me. He wanted them to understand to what degree he's in need of this, and regardless of what he pays, it's the equivalent of what that you gave me a gift. That's what the way Avraham is communicating this. Therefore, he says, Tenuli, give me. Not acquire on my behalf. That's what he's saying. Tenuli achuzes kever, vekra meishin lefonai. Let's see Rashi. Ger v'toshav anochi imochem, ger me'eretz acheres and shiashli imochem. Mention God, im tirtzu haredi ger. If you want to see me, I'm a ger. V'im lav eya toshav etlen min adin. And if not, I'm going to take it because I can demand it based on my legal rights. Shama li HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zarcho etein v'sa'ortz hazos. So over here, the Sitzachom asks a question. We had in the earlier parsha that it says Hakanani Yosmoritz, when Avram had the dispute with the shepherds of Lot, they said, look, Avram has no heir, the land is ours, we have a right to it. We could graze our flocks on other people's lands. So the Torah says Hakanani Yosmoritz, that at that time the Kanani was their land, you had no right. So over here, the land is not ours. So he explains that's before Avram had a son. Once he said, to your progeny, I will give this land. Once Yitzchak was born, he had a claim. There with Lot, that was before he had children. As a result of that, Akanani Osboritz. Now this is after. Sorry, man, who passes away Yitzchak, this is after the Akedah. Therefore, now he has legal rights to the land as an owner of the land. Okay? How did they respond? Listen to us, our master. We value like a prince of God in our midst. In the choices of the graves, you bury your dead. No person will deny whatever you choose to accommodate your request. To bury your dead. Avram stood up and he prostrated himself before the Amoretz in the Cheis. We always say that what's prostration? That gesture of prostration is when a person fully extends himself on the ground. That gesture is what am I in your presence? I'm like the dust of the earth. The Gemara says, Hashtach noise, pishut yodam raglayim. It's full prostration. Now, if a person's sitting and then he prostrates himself, it's not as obvious that the gesture is, I'm nothing in your presence. But if you stand up first and then you go and you lie flat, I'm this, but what? I prostrate myself. So it's obvious that I'm totally subordinating myself. To what degree? That I'm like the dust of the earth. We had once said, the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that there were 10 miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. That on Yom Kippur, the Klausha were on the Temple Mount, and when they would hear the Shem Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, it says Omdim Tzufim. They were literally pressed together. When they heard the Shem Hashem, Mishtachlim Revochim, there'd be enough room to prostrate themselves with room to spare. That was one of the miracles. You hear this? Omdim Tzufufim. They were so pressed together that if you lift your feet off the ground, you wouldn't fall. That's how pressed together you were. But when they bowed, they prostrated themselves, there was enough room to spare that they full prostration. So I asked the question: if Hashem's performing the miracle, why was they were so packed? They were so pressed together. Hashem, as they come in, Hashem should have provided enough space that there should be room for everyone. Why only Mishtachim and Revochim? Only when they bowed, then there was room to spare, that they were able to have full prostration, and in addition, room to spare. With room, why? That's the question we asked.
That's Hashem.
So we have later in the parsha, Eliezer is sent as an agent to find a wife for Yitzchak. And when finally they say, Hashem Yotzad Dover, it's clear it's Hashem's will, Rivka could go back. So it says, he acknowledges Hashem, but before he acknowledges Hashem, it says he bows and he thanks Hashem. So Rashi says over there on that pasuk, from here we see that when you receive something special, you have to thank Hashem. That's the takeaway. Because it says he bowed and he thanked Hashem. From here, when you receive something special, you have to give thanks to Hashem. If I give you $1 million check, does the Torah have to give me write a pasuk? You have to say thank you. If you appreciate what that is, here Eliezer's whole objective was to find a wife who's the future matriarch, and he found it. So of course, he's saying thank you. Pasuk has to tell me write a pasuk. From here, we learn that when you receive something special, you're supposed to say thank you. You know, it's a sad commentary. The Torah has to write a pasuk to teach me that. So what is the Torah teaching us? So what I explained was, and by the Bikurim, we have the declaration of Bikurim. It says after you make your declaration, it says you prostrate yourself in the sanctuary, and it says, and now you benefit from everything that Hashem gives you. Meaning, everybody in his own right has a certain sense of entitlement. I'm entitled. The degree of entitlement you feel, it minimizes your appreciation of what you're receiving from Hashem. If a person truly feels he's totally not entitled, it's not, conceptually, because I understand what Hashem does, but literally you feel you're not entitled, period. Your level of appreciation is greater. When does a person feel totally unentitled? If you negate yourself to such a degree and you do an action, you take action to minimize your value. I'm no different than the dust of the earth. Now, when you say thank you, it's a different level of thank you. It's a thank you, I thank you, but you realize I have some degree of worthiness, and you should be doing that favor for me. But if I go and negate myself to the degree that I feel I have no value at all, it's like the dust of the earth. If that's the case, the thank you is a greater thank you. You're internalizing to your core, understanding what you're recipient of. That's what the Torah is teaching there. Before Eliezer said thank you, he prostrated himself because he wanted to have the ability to fully internalize what Hashem had provided there. That's the understanding. So Avraham stands and then he prostrates himself and he thanks the Bnei Cheis for offering what they're offering. So what I said was, Omdim tzvufim. You tzvufim, and all of a sudden, if Hashem would cause, it should be revochim without prostration. Hashem provided miracle. But it's only once they mishtachvim revochim, when they bow and they negate themselves and they truly feel that their value is no more than the dust of the earth, now Hashem provides it. Because now you have an understanding of who Hashem is. When you understand Hashem at that level, then you're worthy of the miracle. Until then, when you think you're something and it's coming to you, Hashem doesn't provide that kind of miracle. If it's omdid svufim, that's when everything expands and there's enough room to spare. Therefore, it's vayokom vayishtach. He first stood and then he bowed. Because then the action is the greater action. I am, but I'm nothing. It expresses appreciation to the Bnei Cheis. Dabri to Lamor. In the Yeshish Namshchem Likros Macy Lefonai, if you truly want to allow me to bury my dead, my deceased, my present, Shmoni, be attentive to my request. Ufiguli Ephron ben Sochar. Arrange a meeting between myself and Ephron ben Sochar. V'yitenli, again, I mean, Avram's willing to pay a fortune here. V'yitenli. Hashem is showing, Avram is expressing, regardless of what he pays, I consider it like you gifted it to me. That's his level of appreciation here. V'yitenli Me'aras HaMachpelah, Asher lo Hashem tzesodeu. He's identifying, give me the cave which is double, which is the end of the field. He's identifying its exact location. The kesef moli nanoli. Hear this now, and with kesef moli, I'm willing to pay full price. I will not haggle with him. He will give it to me. When will he give it to me? It's kesef moli. It's not yinenoli. Yimkorli. He'll sell it to me. No, yinenoli. I consider it like he gave it to me. Regardless of what I pay, I consider it a favor. Besochem l'chuzas kover. Rashi says, the kesef mole, kol shavi, I'm willing to pay full price, it's full value. Hey David, omal arvono, the kesef mole. When David Melch purchased the location within the Beis Hamikdash, he paid kesef mole. Then there's no question that the seller could even consider saying, maybe the sale was not a sale, you somehow pressured me, kesef mole. It's beyond, it's the full worth, even beyond, nobody would ever question that it was not full payment. Okay, we're gonna. I think we're gonna finish now. We're gonna do the halacha.
Rabbi, can I say quickly?
Good. You know, when we're posting the halacha, he says, "Eklo pas lechem." Have a morsel of bread. But what did he serve them? Serve them a banquet fit for a king. Tzadikim omrim makosim harbe. Rishoyim omrim harbe ain't most my feel about. Rishoyim, they promise you the world, but they don't deliver as much as an iota. Here he says, consider it yours. And then he's asking the price beyond anything you could imagine. So how is he being depicted? Rishoyim. He's an evil man. Regardless that he was the one who facilitated it. But he had an ulterior motive. Because he understood here he could take an arm and a leg for this. And Avram's willing to give it.